Today's guest is Anna Gifty Opoku-Agyeman. She is the award-winning researcher, speaker, and author of the powerful and brand new book, like go buy it immediately right now when you're listening to this. It's called The Double Tax: How Women of Color Are Overcharged and Underpaid, a reality we know too damn well. But we're gonna talk about it. We're not here to get, this is a safe space for us to acknowledge what's going on. But I'm so excited to have Anna on the show. Her work has exposed the compounded financial, social, and emotional costs faced by us, women of color in America. She offers insights and solutions. Now, I have emphasis on the solutions because I was scrolling. I'm like, is this going to be just about how terrible it is to be a Black woman? No, let's get into what actually can be done. So in her book, Anna offers insights and solutions for economic justice and equity, and puts the spotlight on the hidden costs women of color face across their lives and careers, hidden to everybody else, very well known to us. It is damn expensive to be a woman of color in this country. And the book really challenges, I think, the reader to rethink how we are valuing, compensating, and championing all women, which may be a bit triggering to some, all women. But I think what's great about the book is that it's a book that I feel like you can hand to a non-woman of color, to our white women allies, and just be like, read this right here. Read this right here, and then go do something about it. Also, Anna founded the Black Birders Week, which I need y'all to know
Oh
about.
my God, deep cut.
Little fun fact, because she's not busy enough. In addition to having a ton of degrees from some very elite institutions, you just graduated with your master's from Harvard, the Harvard Kennedy School, no less.
PhD loading.
Hey, Anna Gifty, welcome to the show. Welcome to Brown
Thank you
Ambition.
so much. Can I just say that your intro, especially about the book, is so the best I've heard so far. Just perfectly encapsulates, is giving you red. Exactly. So I'm so grateful to be here. This community is so special to me. Thank you guys for existing. There's so many people who rely on the insights that you share. So I'm super honored to be here. I told my publicist, Taylor, the publicist, shout out to Black Women Publicists. I was like, girl, you better get me on Brown Ambition. And here we are. So I'm super excited.
It was, you know what? I have been stalking your book for months. I feel like at the beginning of the year, I think I emailed like all the top 5 publishers, and I was like, I'm with Brown Ambition, because people weren't sending me enough books. I'm like, I need more books. I need more authors on the show. So I emailed the top 5 publishers, and like I think Taylor was one of the first to get back and say, here's our slate of upcoming, and your book was on it. And I was like, damn, not till the summer. I can't get her till the summer.
Wow.
But yeah, I've been waiting for this for months. So very happy to have you on.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, so tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Before we
Yes.
get into the nitty-gritty of the book.
Absolutely. So hi everybody, my name is Anna. Folks know me online as Anna Gifty. Gifty is actually part of my first name. As Mandi just shared, I have a longer last name. I actually have multiple names. We're not going to get into that, but it is a slight flex. I used to write my name as sort of like a party trick at kid birthday parties. That being said,
Do the thing, Anna. Write your name. Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like my parents just couldn't stop naming me. But anyway, that being said, I'm super excited to be here. I'm originally from Ghana. I was born there for like 3 seconds, and then my parents got something called the visa lottery. So it gave them U.S. citizenship to basically come over here with our entire family. And from there, I actually landed first in Minneapolis. Shout out to the Midwest. And then I was really raised in the DMV. So I was raised in Maryland. And I'm a proud Marylander, huge Ravens fan. I don't know. I'm a Lakers fan. Shout out to Kobe. Rest in peace. And I would also say, too, that I'm just like a girl from around the way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm someone who's going to play Uno with you and be very intense about it. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and make up my rules. But I'm also just like a sister, a niece, somebody's daughter, and then also just like trying to be a good friend and good human. So I'm really excited to be here. I know there's like accolades that people might know about, but I'm just Anna, honestly, and I'm just excited to be in this conversation.
So at what point throughout your academic career, because you had an interesting career, you spent some time in academia.
Yes.
You didn't have your first corporate interview or corporate like job negotiation until 2020.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Can you talk about your career path?
Sure. And also, just really quick, I'm a Head Start kid, so shout out to Head Start folks. If you're in the mix,
Educate children, please, America.
Come on, keep it alive, please. We're begging. Anyway, career path. Yeah. So I mean, I'll take it back just a little bit. So when I was in college, I essentially started out at the flagship university of my state. This is University of Maryland, College Park. And funny enough, I actually started out in business. But as many people know, like when you're in the undergrad level, business degrees are really preparing you for one type of job, and it's to be a consultant of some kind. And I don't know, for me, I was just kind of like, I feel like I can do a bit more than that. Like maybe I end up there, but let me see if there are other ways to explore. Girl, I had like what's like a midlife existential crisis, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And so I ended up transferring to our sister university, which is University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where I actually started off as pre-med, and that was an experience.
Tracks.
Derogatory, right,
Man,
derogatory.
you had to do it. You had to try.
Try, right? The parents were like, we would love a doctor in the family. They're going to get one, but not the one that they were expecting. And so I got like basically weeded out by the weed out course, organic chemistry, and decided to pursue math on a Women of Prayer, quite frankly. And it's funny because the timing of that essentially was when I decided to pursue math, the university president at the time was like, hey, we're getting this like multi-million-dollar grant to get more minorities into economics. Do you want to do it? And I was like, what's economics? And so I ended up Googling economists, and I was surprised to see how it was 40 shades of beige, and they all come from like the same 3 or 4 universities. But what was interesting was that, I was the kind of kid that watched TED Talks for fun. Don't judge me. But I was watching TED Talks for fun, and I realized I had been watching economists pretty much like my whole life, but I didn't know what they were. I thought they were like a different type of lawyer. So when I learned about what economics actually was, I was like, whoa, this is like really dope. Like we're using numbers to solve problems, but for people, like that's actually really cool. And so ultimately that led me to pursue my bachelor's in math, finished with honors. Shout out to God and shout out to my brain. I'm very excited about that. And the reason I say that too is because I had an advisor at the time who, was telling me not to pursue the PhD. And at this point I had decided to do the PhD because that's why I decided to major in math. And he did not know my math schedule. So one day he saw it and he was like, you're taking applied stats, probability and statistics? Wait, these are like really hard courses. And I was like, I know. I need it for my math major because I'm trying to do this PhD. Like,
Meanwhile,
what are
like,
we
isn't
talking
this
about?
university that was like, we got this money to put more women, people of
Right.
color in this field, but clearly the advisors didn't catch up. Do you think you went in? Do you think that I read that in the book and I was going to
Yes.
ask about it? I feel like we
Yes.
all have a story about that. Like, shout out to every English professor who accused me of plagiarism. No, I didn't.
Girl,
Okay. I just have social anxiety and I
listen.
don't talk, but I write a lot. I write good.
Clock it.
But we all
Clock
have
it.
like, I think that that's one of the experiences. It's like very cathartic, I think, to describe who was the person who told you that you can't do or shouldn't do the thing that you wanted to do, and you
Yeah.
did it anyway.
Yeah.
But do you think, I mean, you do touch on that in the book, the idea of, the DEI initiatives like that, and how even those, if we come through a DEI program, can sometimes be a double tax in and of itself. Like
Yes.
like you're getting this benefit of getting a seat at the table, but people are not taking you seriously because you are, like, the great Ketanji Brown Jackson, a DEI hire,
Right. I
and yet
think
a whole
that,
Supreme Court justice.
listen, like, and we're talking about, and I think I laid out her credentials in the book. Like, that lady is stacked in terms of her credentials. So anybody who was like, what's her LSAT scores? What's your LSAT score? Okay,
Tell
run
me
that
what the
back.
LSAT stands for, first of all.
Break down that acronym for me, please. But yeah, I think that like everything you're saying is exactly right. I went through pretty much every diversity program in economics that you could possibly imagine. I've done everything, right? And it's interesting because, people know that I've done these things. And so I remember when I got into Harvard, oh my God. So that's the next part of my journey, by the way. So I got into Harvard. It was the only school that accepted me, by the way, for the PhD. And there were people who were like, she only got in because she's a diversity. And it's
Of course.
interesting, right? Because they'd seen me go through these diversity programs. Oh, she only got bolstered. They only care about her. Da 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 da. But guess who is being paraded in part of the brochures in this university? Because of the merit. You see what I'm saying? So it's interesting to me that like people always want to say that diversity and merit are at odds with each other. Oftentimes they'll say diversity and merit are substitutes. But what I say in the book and what I'll say here is they're actually complements, right? You don't want people who are qualified in the same way. Let's start there, right? You need these complementary skills to build something better. In economics, we have this idea of sort of like perfect competition. If you have all these different things competing against each other, the best thing rises to the top, ideally. But what happens if it's like groupthink or everybody has the same ideas? It's like a flat line, so to speak. Like there's nothing that's actually gonna potentially benefit society or even the room, because there's not a lot of ideas like flowing to the top.
But it's comfy, cozy there for some
Right.
people, Anna. Some people are very comfy and like they want to wrap themselves up in that like white security blanket and just be like, I know exactly what everyone else thinks and feels like. No one's challenging me. No one's a threat to me and my survival.
But here's the thing.
But
Let me say it like this. If a tsunami is coming and some people start running the opposite way, and you say, I'm going to go ahead and lay down on my beach towel, I'm comfy here, I'm comfortable. It's not really touching me right now. At some point, that tsunami hits, where will you be? Will you be like in safety, or will you be amongst those who are like fighting for their life, right? And I think that that's kind of why you don't want to be in the comfort of your white security blanket. It's not going to save you at the end of the day, right? And at the end of the day, too, I would say that a lot of the ideas that, diversity allows to really come to the forefront are really about the betterment of everybody in society. There's people who seem to think that like diversity is synonymous with like people of color or certain groups, but as folks are discovering, as these programs are getting rolled back, it supports veterans, it supports working class and poor folks, it supports people who are returning to school. You might be white and fall into some of those groups, right? And so you acting like this thing that only affects black people is only affecting black people is actually harming your long-term benefit. And that's like, why would you do that? You don't want to harm yourself. So anyway.
I mean, I think DEI, I don't think any other groups benefited more than white women, right?
And that's the tea. That's the tea.
I was going to wait for this, but I have to talk. Chelsea Clinton wrote the foreword for your book.
Did.
How did that happen and why?
That's a great question. So essentially, Chelsea and I met back in, I want to say 2020. And so she was someone right before I published my first book, which I edited, by the way. Folks thought I wrote it, but I was just the MC, guys. Folks wrote that book. But long story short, she had been kind of a strong supporter of the work that I was doing early on around that time. And we had come together to kind of put together an event for Black girls and Black women at the Clinton Foundation. And so I think she saw it as like, okay, like this is one way I can show sort of allyship and support. But I also will say, like, just to be quite candid, this is the kind of book that I actually do need white women to pick up, right? And so there was a question or a conversation about, who do we want to kind of open up the book? And I remember our team kind of discussing this and ultimately deciding, like, we kind of want someone who's not a woman of color because I'm a woman of color, and we don't want people to feel like they can't really approach the book because it's only, that's kind of what's happening. I'll just be very candid because we're being honest here. What I'm learning as I'm promoting this book is that women's spaces are very coded for rich white women. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir.
I lived through The Wing, okay?
Listen.
Do you remember The Wing?
Is that a show?
No. It's that co-working space. It was like,
I don't know what that is.
Rich white girls. Oh, because you're a little bit younger than me.
Oh.
I think, yeah. So anyway, but go ahead. Look it up after this.
We'll look it up. But you see what I'm saying? Like when people are saying, oh, women in leadership, they're not talking about us. Mm-hmm. We're not considered women. There's a saying that, my wonderful chief of staff, Aisha, shared with me. She said, white women are women and Black women are men, basically, right? Like everybody else who is not considered a woman that's like white women are men, or like they're not considered women, like they're considered minorities or they're considered part of another group. And so it's been interesting to be like, hey, these are issues that women of color are kind of centered in, like let's talk about it, and seeing these women's spaces be like, it's not Black History Month yet. Mm-hmm. It's not Hispanic Heritage Month. I don't know if this is the right time. Whole time, like we're seeing women of color, especially Black women, being attacked on a number of different fronts, especially economically and politically. And folks are not seeing this as a story that women, white women, should care about. And so I think that Chelsea's role here is actually really important, that she's also kind of inviting these white women who claim to be allies and purport support for women of color to actually put their money where their mouth is. Yeah.
It occurred to me as I was, because when I finally read it, I was reading and I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. I think it's it is that little bit of like, on the one hand, you can be cynical about it and be like, well, no one was there to make us feel more comfortable being the only ones in the room.
Listen.
But she is that like familiar face for a reader that you want to reach to be like, oh, I like Chelsea. She's great. And, check out this book.
That's right.
Which is the whole point. And I think that that's a really great example, and kudos to her. I think we should give the flowers when a white woman isn't actually an ally and uses their clout, their status, their name recognition, whatever platform they have to like lift up another woman of color in their voice. And so I just wanted to touch on that because in the beginning, when I first saw it, I was like, but it makes
You're not the only
sense.
one, by the way. A lot of people are like, why didn't you have like a black woman open up or another woman of color? And I completely understand that. I think like there's a lot of different iterations of how that could have gone.
Also, aren't we? We're tired of talking about how hard it is to be us. Do you know what
I think
mean?
that was also how I was like, I think the conversation, it's interesting. Like for me putting this book together, a couple things came through my mind in terms of target audience. Like obviously women in general are the target audience, but I also think men need to read this book. Y'all talking about the loneliness epidemic. It starts with empathy, guys. So this is the book to read. My dad, I feel like, better understood my experience as a woman and my mom's experience as a woman and my sister by like really hearing about the book. Yeah, and we can talk more about that after. But overall, I think what I learned was a couple things. One, not all of us have the facts about our experiences, but we do have the fact of our experience, right? So we know, like, as we're going through things, like this definitely happened to me. But I think what this book does is it puts numbers to your experience and says, yeah, and there's actually a lot of data to back that up, right? You're not going crazy. You're not imagining that. And I think that that's really important. I think the other thing that this does is it completely removes any opportunity to gaslight. And that's why I love this book, actually, right? The facts are so, can I cuss? So
Girl.
damn clear. Sorry.
That's it? That's all you're going to give me is a damn? You work up to it.
I'm so, but it's so clear, y'all, that this is the reality. Anybody trying to refute it is just a liar at this point, because we're citing articles, we're citing books, we're citing op-eds, we're citing experts, and we're saying there's no denying that women of color are overcharged and underpaid. And there's no denying what the double tax is and how it manifests in our society. It makes literally everything worse. And what I've told folks, especially white women, is you don't want to ignore what's happening to women of color. I know that like some of these spaces will pretend like women of color are kind of an afterthought, but what is tested on us first will be, you know what I'm saying? Like it's going to happen to you next. Like you don't want to be, like you could literally dead it right now when you talk to us about it. But if you're not talking to us, you don't know the tsunami that's coming your way. And that's essentially what this is about.
It's so true. I mean, first they come for minorities in the decon. You know what? Just the word minority, when you were talking, I'm like, we need to stop. We don't call it a minority diamond. We call it a rare or a minority gemstones. They're rare. They're precious.
Yes.
They are. And I love the idea of just like reframing it in that way. And like when you see a person of color, woman of color on your team and in your company or just throughout your work, and it's just like, zoom in on that person. Like they're special, they're unique. Like why wouldn't you want to appreciate that? All right, but side quest complete. Back to this. I want to talk about, so the name itself, Double Tax. Can you tell for the readers who haven't had a chance to, or listeners who haven't had a chance to read it yet, define double tax and what does that mean?
Yes, I hope the listeners become readers, ideally.
Well, they are. They already ordered it while they're listening.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
I heard those like cha-chings. I heard
Period. So the double tax is the compounded cost of racism and sexism. And because I'm talking to a lot of black women right now, it's misogynoir quantified. That's the way you can think about it, right? And so what I argue in the book is that like women of color basically experience varying degrees of the double tax. Honestly, as it relates to like their proximity to black women. So for example, let's say we're talking about a Southeast Asian woman. Her hair is fine, but her skin is dark, right? And so she might experience different experiences with respect to like colorism that actually are more akin to what black women experience as compared to white women, right? So the idea here is that these costs that women of color especially are facing ultimately are at the individual level. It's like the day to day, you're just trying to survive and you're dealing with racism and you're dealing with sexism and at times classism and other isms, right? But these costs that you're dealing with, if they go unaddressed, become bigger problems for society down the line. And down the line could be as soon as tomorrow, or it could be like 5 years down the line. Let me give you guys maybe like a very clear example of what's taking place as we are talking right now at the time of this, which is like September 2nd. So my mentor and dear friend, Governor Lisa Cook, is currently being targeted by the President of the United States, right? The goal is to get her out of the Fed. That's the goal. They don't want her there anymore. Her position, I believe, goes till 2038. Might go till 2035, but it's a decade-long position that she's supposed to be holding. Let me give you guys maybe a quick overview of what the Fed does. So the Fed is the Federal Reserve System, and within the Federal Reserve System is the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. So they're the people who kind of are in charge of managing all the economists that manage the economy. These are the people who set interest rates. Interest rates ultimately are going to inform whether or not you can borrow money for a house, or whether or not when you go to Costco tomorrow, the groceries on the shelves are going to be higher or lower. Okay? So that's essentially what their function is. You don't want that body to be influenced by political whims at all, because you want the data to be the one informing that. Here's how that's related to the double tax. Right now, Governor Lisa Cook is the first person to be targeted, or maybe the second after Jerome Powell, but first person amongst the Board of Governors to be targeted. And a lot of people are wondering, why is she being targeted? She's a black woman. That's clear, right? So she's facing the double tax of racism and sexism, right? And that's an individual cost that she's sort of bearing. The issue here is if this cost goes unaddressed, if they allow this racism and sexism to slide, the societal cost is that this man's the man who's breaking everything is going to put somebody in her position that will break the economy, and that directly affects you. It directly affects the white guy who's living down the street. It directly affects the Latina mother who is just trying to make it by. It affects everybody. So this individual cost of racism and sexism that seems like, oh, it's just bigotry, whatever. If it goes unaddressed, everybody loses. And that's the point of the double tax. You want to make sure that you're addressing the racism and sexism when you see it, so that these other, consequences don't have to be fully realized by everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, this was for me, I mean, I live in New York and we have Letitia James here.
Yes.
And we've seen her in a similar, this is like a playbook that, Trump and his lackeys have used before on Tish James, trying to dig into mortgage lending records to find some sort of smoking gun and then use it to take them down. But Lisa, on a personal level, you said she was your mentor.
Yeah.
How is she doing? Like, have you had a chance to talk to her about all this?
I haven't had a chance to really have a full conversation with her. The last time we spoke, she said, just girl, pray for me. That's what she basically said. And the thing about Governor Cook is she's a fighter. This is someone who desegregated schools, has the scars to prove it. This is not her first rodeo. I have full faith that, she will be proven innocent and that she will continue to serve out her role. But this is, as Toni Morrison said, a distraction, right? We should be focused on economic policies that are uplifting people who are losing jobs right now, who are facing, cuts in the workforce, and it's affecting their income and their financial stability. Instead, we're talking about this man attacking a black woman because he doesn't like black women in power, even though that black woman is serving the American people.
And I mean, also you can look at the Department of Labor economist. That was a white woman, I believe. Actually, I don't know her race, but no, it was a woman who he fired simply because he did not like the data that they were issuing. And that to me was really like bone chilling. I think because of my background as a journalist, is like those are the most trusted sources of data that we have.
100%.
I can trust. I go to that janky, barely like HTML website through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I'm just like, oh, this is the good stuff, because it looks like it's from like 1995.
100%. 100%.
No, like these people work hard to be like the most driest, least exciting, just like, because you say
Not too much
economists.
on them.
No, but I mean, like, just give us straight facts. And
Literally.
it's really terrifying. And now, you're seeing these additional personal vendettas be
Yes.
played out. And well, I'll be praying for Lisa. I mean, more than praying, I think, like, you have your hashtag on your IG right now, hashtag, what is it? I stand with Dr. Lisa Cook.
Yes, we stand with Dr. Lisa Cook. I know that that is sort of like the Win with Black Women initiative that's also been championing it. You
Oh, okay.
know,
Oh, is that where it's
yeah.
okay?
So I think
Yeah.
for me, my small potatoes responsibility is to, if I'm given the opportunity to remind people who Governor Cook is, like as a character, like her character and who she is and how she shows up for people. I don't think people understand like how big of an impact she's had on the economics profession, which is why over 500 economists have signed an open letter in support of her. She's been an extremely important pillar to the space, and so these
Mm.
attacks are unprecedented, unnecessary, and hopefully they will be also unfounded as well. Yeah.
Well, this definitely comes up because I mean, Lisa was a figure in your book. You talk about her in the
Yes.
chapter. You kind of, each chapter kind of goes through an example of a double tax. So you have chapters on, you start off with good hair. So we talk about the double tax of, the cost of having these gorgeous crowns on our head. And some of my favorite chapters, because I'm biased, because I do a lot of negotiation coaching, and that's my bag. I love it. Is like give tools and an actual rule book and a playbook you can use to negotiate. So you talk about resume whitening, and I know we were joking about that with our names and how like I wonder now. I added dash hyphen Santos to my name when I got married, and I'm like, huh. That kind of unwhitewashes my name a little, like
A little
Mandy
bit.
Woodruff. Oh.
Yeah.
Mandy
Seriously.
Woodruff Santos.
Yeah. And then for those who don't know what resume whitening is, essentially it's this idea that you strip parts of your racial identity on your resume to hopefully increase your chances of a callback. And what I say in the book, what Mandy's essentially alluding to, is that there's arguably good reason to do that. Like, I'm not saying that you should, but we
One
have,
would understand.
right, we have evidence from all the way from the 1970s basically saying that there's never been a time when white folks were called back less than black folks. Like black folks are always called back less. So like just off your name, even if you have the same type of credentials as a white person, and you actually are more one of the craziest things that I learned from the resume whitening chapter is that like even if a black person is like super qualified, you still will fare worse than a white person who's not qualified at all. Like the whiteness is actually a superpower in some sense. It allows for like people to just kind of blindly say this person's more competent than this person, even if the facts are not indicating that.
Right. And you go on to talk about, in your chapter, dollars and cents, the whole pay inequity storyline and reality that has just been at this point. It's like, God damn, what's going to happen? But I was thinking about broken rungs when you were talking about Lisa, because I think that's such a great example. I mean, it's a heartbreaking example
Right.
of a woman who has done everything right and is so fucking accomplished. And still, it's like, it wasn't that she reached a broken rung. It's like the rung was broken underneath her foot.
You got
They
it.
just
Ooh.
literally took a sledgehammer. I wonder in your career, because you've been, we didn't really finish the other part of your career
Oh,
trajectory. That's fine. That happens. BA fam knows how to go on a ride with me.
love it.
But you haven't had a ton of time in corporate, but I wonder throughout your academic career and corporate career, have you found a broken rung for yourself yet? Has there been a time where you felt like you were kicked off or, lost an opportunity because of who you are and what you represent?
You know, it's interesting. I've actually never shared this publicly before, but I think that my early advocacy in the economics profession might have affected whether or not I got into certain PhD programs.
Well, you did say Harvard was the only one to.
Harvard was the only one.
Hmm.
And the reason I
Let
say
me,
that
when you
is,
say your early advocacy, do you mean like I know you from IG first.
yeah,
It's
so I
Afro
co-founded an
it's
organization called the
Afronomics.
Sadie Collective.
You're right,
Yes.
the Sadie
Right,
collect. Okay,
right.
talk
And
about
so
that.
that
Yeah.
organization was geared towards black women and girls, still very much, but I know it now serves minorities more broadly. But like, I think a lot of people thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life, actually. It was interesting when I announced that I'm going to do this PhD. I think a lot of people were kind of taken off guard. But what was interesting was I just remember there were certain programs I was like, I think I'm going to be a shoe-in. Like, I know the type of people who applied, that kind of thing. And I felt like, okay, why didn't I get in? And like, I remember having a conversation with an older black woman in the space. And she was like, I think that these folks are kind of punishing you a little bit for the sort of space that you occupy within the profession right now. At that time, I was like, I want to say like 24 or 25, but 24 or 25 with a platform. And so it's almost
Is this
like
like in
people,
2020-ish or what year?
yeah, 2020-ish is when I was
Mhm.
applying. And so I think people might have felt some type of way, maybe. I'm just like speculating. I would say also that like even my decision to just like become an economist was a bit of a broken rung that I experienced, right? There were people who were actively trying to make it harder for me to advance. Um, and one thing that I allude to in the conversation with, or like the part of the part of the story about Governor Cook is that she dealt with a lot of naysayers when she was rising into her current position at the Fed. Like there were people who wrote op-eds about how unqualified they thought she was. I haven't had people write op-eds about me yet, but I have dealt with my fair share of trolls and people who just don't think that I'm qualified to one, speak on anything, and two, even be pursuing this in the first place. One thing that people don't know about economics is that it's uniquely non-diverse, like uniquely it's uniquely non-diverse socioeconomically, meaning like a lot of folks come from parents who have like high ranking degrees and are very rich, and you'll find out that a lot of economists are children of economists. Like no shade, no tea, no shade, but like that's what it is. And then it's also very white, it's very male, right? So much so that I believe that black women made up 0.28% of PhDs earned by economists in 2023. That's worse than when
That's
Governor
one
Cook
sprinkle out the
had.
whole jar, rainbow sprinkle.
Girl, it's four people. Four people. Like for me, the broken rung I've dealt with is really like criticisms and people kind of like seeing, all that I am and saying that disqualifies her. And so that's why in the resume whitening chapter, I really went in and talked about how you have these merit warriors, people who are like, we gotta stick to merit. But then you find out that daddy is the reason why they got into the program. And that stuff just irks me on a like a very deep level, like that you got a leg up, and because you're trying to prove to everybody that you're meritocratic, you're making it harder for everybody else to get through. And I think that to me is like, what are you doing? So yeah,
Also, conveniently, they're past the point in which they would be, seeking like admittance to a school or for an entry level position. They're comfortably ahead of that already. Yeah, and comfortably positioned to help their children or their mentees or whoever, should they run into any merit like
yeah,
roadblocks.
yeah. Did
Yeah,
that
I
make sense
also,
though? I just want to make sure.
what's that?
Like, did it make sense? The broken rung example that I shared.
It was yours. It's your
Oh,
personal experience, baby. It
okay,
always makes sense.
okay, thanks.
I'm getting a little emotional. One, I just do
Oh,
that lately. It's just like this whole summer has been
same.
very, it's been a lot. And I think because I do have, um, I was doing really well in I mean, I obviously still have a great career, but the corporate side of my career, I was really killing it. And like when I hit my first broken rung, I just never saw it coming. And it was also around the 2020 time period. And you know what? I'm looking at you now and I'm just like, also, we're just so damn like sparkly. And it's some rooms that I know you're in, Anna, like especially in academia. And I know I was making fun of the crusty and the dry of the economics world, but you're so the antithesis of like my stereotype of that profession. But I think my stereotype's based in, some truth. And I just know they're so intimidated. They don't know what to do with you. And they probably are insecure themselves because, like, you have a whole book, by a top 5 publisher that's already out. You haven't even finished your PhD like who cares? But like, you haven't done these steps in the maybe the order that some people who've earned it, would
Yeah,
have done it. And you're young and like and I think because we are like rare and unique and we have such like, obviously we have very different like backgrounds and upbringings, but I do think to be a Black woman in America, you just have something about you. You just have this like inner light, sparkle, shine that if it is a unanointed or like insecure person or someone who doesn't know how to feel the warmth of that sun, like they act out of like they don't know how to act, and often it's attack. It's like we don't understand this, we have to get rid of it. Yeah, and so that those feelings were just coming up for me. It's like
I'm
just like
extremely
feeling a lot
proud.
of compassion for you, and I'm also like protect her, like
Oh,
don't
thank
let them get
you.
to her
I,
because we
I
need
feel,
you in this field.
listen, I feel so touched by those words. Thank you so, like, my heart is bursting. Thank you so much for those kind words,
Same.
truly. Um, it's hard, I'm not gonna lie. There's times when it's a bit isolated. Thankfully I have a great community, I feel like, of women of color, especially Black women, who I think have just really kind of surrounded me and kind of guide me through. But I'm not gonna lie, like, if I'm adding some nuance here, there's a generational difference here too. You mentioned that I'm young. So for those
Mm.
who don't know, I'm 29 years old. But when I started this work, I was like in my early 20s.
12.
Yeah.
You're 12.
I'm weak. I'm weak. Essentially, right? I was 12 in like adult years. So I feel like people, a lot of people are like, she hasn't earned her stripes yet. Why is she being interviewed by NPR? Why is she going on Marketplace? Like, it was a lot of like, who do you think you are? And how, and it's interesting. One of my favorite professors, like in Professor Friends, is Dr. Trevon Logan. I highly recommend that y'all check out his work. He's done a lot of really cool work on white women enslavers. A lot of people like to say that white
Ooh.
women didn't enslave people. That's not true. He's done some really great research on it. It's been featured in the Times, so I highly, highly recommend. But he said something to me. He said two things to me that really, I think, has kind of kept me going. The first thing he said to me back in, I think I would say 2019, was he said, Anna, you need to show up in these spaces as yourself. Because if you don't and you reveal who you are, they're going to be shocked, right? And so if you show up as yourself, you already filter who's willing to deal with that and who's willing to be, in your
Oh, I
corner, which I
love
thought
this
was
guy.
just excellent advice, right? Excellent advice. And then the second thing he said to me, it was about 2 or 3 years ago. He said something like, what's interesting about you, Anna? I think a lot of people are really shocked that you're still here. That is what people are upset by. They're upset by your longevity. And I think that that is a universal truth for Black women, especially young Black women who are coming up, that like we are still present. Like we're here despite the obstacles, despite the challenges, despite people doubting us. We show up and we show up for ourselves and we show up for our community. And that ends up, again, like this lifeline that we're throwing ourselves ends up actually saving everybody else, right? And I think that there's people who can't really understand how we sort of survive that pressure because if it were them, they would break, right? And so I think that to me has been the most encouraging thing. And I would also say, just as a quick aside, knowing that I could do something that could make my nieces' lives a little bit better. My nieces are all under the age of 18. One of my nieces is about to go to college. Her and I are doing college visits this fall. I'm super excited. And then my other nieces are under the age of 5. Like,
Even though you changed your major 17 times.
listen, I did. I changed my major 17 times. I'm not giving her advice on that. But that
I
being
love that. I laughed so hard when
listen,
you wrote that. I'm like,
girl,
let a woman change her mind. It's a woman's
listen. My
prerogative.
parents said, please graduate. Please and thank you. Like, we're trying to like get through this, right? But what I'll say is that like, oh,
Your
if
nieces,
I
you were
can,
saying you want to support your nieces and make sure
that's
that
right.
it's
Like, if
easier for them. Yeah.
right, if I could prevent racism and sexism, just even one iota for them, it's worth it. It's worth it for me. I see like the next generation. I see Gen Z, and I'm looking at them, and I see Gen Alpha. Very good video editors, by the way. Don't sleep on their skills. Very good video editors. I feel like people are sleeping on them. They're really good. Anyway, they're they give me so much hope. Like I want the best for them so badly. And if that means that I have to study racism and sexism so they don't have to, it's worth it. It's worth it for me. And so that to me is like the fuel that keeps me going, knowing that the next generation could be even a little bit better off if I try my hardest at this current time. Yeah.
Just you being there. Imagine if one day a young woman, maybe she was born in Ghana for 3 seconds, who knows? But like a woman opens the door to her academic advisor's office and your face is what's there. Can you imagine like how different? And then you get, yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying you have to stay in academia. There could be, but to be able to mentor and to like, to at least you're going into the world and you're not going to be the person to question someone's ambition or, did you plagiarize this?
Right.
Do you want to
And
do
just
mathematics?
listen.
Yeah.
To add to that, I had like a brief experience with that already. So I had the opportunity to teach last semester. I was teaching the economics and social policy alongside the professor who actually like runs the course.
Okay, professor.
Yes. Come on, we out here, TF. We're getting there. But I remember, first day of class, I was sitting there and, Professor Shepard introduces me. He says, "Oh, by the way, my teaching fellow is Anna Gifty." And he points to me. And I noticed that all the black folks, especially the black women in the class, like there was like maybe 6 or 7 of them, their faces like, and then
Yeah.
afterwards they come after and they come to me and they say, "We're just so happy that you're RTF." And like I don't know, like that was just like really emotional. Like I don't know, like I understand because I've been in those spaces where I'm the only and I don't have any reminders that like I'm smart and I'm intelligent because there's not people who look like me that are in the space, which is why, by the way, Governor Cook is so important to me. Like she's like someone who really kind of showed me like, oh, I can be at that level. I can do the things that she does. That's not beyond the realm of possibility. So now being that for my peers, right? Or being that for folks who are younger than me, like there's something so fulfilling about that. Like I don't know, like it touches the depths of my soul to have that kind of impact. And again, I just think it's worth it, regardless of what you go through. Like ideally, you don't go through as much harm and as much pain, but like if you need to just weather the storm just so that you can see the sun on the other side, like to me, that's worth it. Yeah.
And I think it probably helps like you have Lisa in front of you and you have your heroes,
Ooh.
the few but the rare, right? The heroes in economics. I think you mentioned some of them in the book. There was a Michelle, was it Road?
You're
Mich
talking about Dr. Michelle Holder.
Holder. Okay, right. You
Yes.
mentioned her. Is she a woman of color?
She is black. She's a black
She's
woman.
black. Okay,
Yes,
because you
a
mentioned
black
her
woman
and I was like, let me write down her name because I've
Yes.
looked at her, I've like cited her research before. But
Yes.
I almost felt like you were low key just through this book itself, like you were shining a light on black women
Yes.
researchers and like people
Absolutely.
who are doing the work. And I think that's a beautiful way to just use your platform
Ugh.
also.
I appreciate you
Consolidate
read
us
the
all
book.
together.
I love that you read it. Like, cause the way the questions you're asking are just so deep, and I really appreciate you appreciating the book. Yes, I really went out of my way to make sure that women of color in particular were highlighted throughout this book. I want you to remember their names. Dr. Michelle Holder coined the double gap, right, which talks about sort of the double compounded cost of racism and sexism in pay. And then, I featured Governor Lisa Cook. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is a scholar in herself, a legal scholar. Dr. Laura Derencourt is an economist that has done exceptional work on documenting the evolution of the racial wealth gap. There's just so many people that I want y'all to remember because I think black women scholars, oftentimes, our contributions are ignored or dismissed. It took Governor Cook so long to get one of the most famous papers that she's put out to even be considered for publication. And so this is really an attempt to kind of correct that wrong or at least try to move things along in the direction so you don't forget it, like our community at least doesn't forget who these people are, because these are the folks that these are the W.E.B. Du Bois, these are the Toni Morrisons. Like you should be paying attention to them. Don't let the numbers scare you. These folks are well versed in explaining those numbers as clearly as possible, and I really wanted to make sure that you knew who they were.
I think that's wonderful. Um, oh, there's so much to talk about. Okay. I don't know. There's this like stat or that you mentioned in the book at a certain point. You're like a study was done on like a new class of incoming freshman college students, I think, or master's students or something, like what a difference it could make in terms of their interest in STEM fields, just in like changing the welcome letter to explain, here's how you can take advantage of these resources or whatever. Um, I want to know, like, for you having, you're getting your PhD, is it in public policy and
Yes, public
economics?
policy with a concentration in economics. Yes.
So, what's your welcome letter to any Brown ambition women who are listening who maybe don't know what that career path is like, or like, why would I get a PhD? Is it a ton of student loans? Like, where do I go to find out more about that career path?
Yes.
What would you say in your like little welcome letter?
Love this question so much. Oh my gosh. So, first and foremost, my PhD is free, y'all. They pay me.
Oh,
Classic.
okay. Let me get
Yes.
that
So I'm
coupon.
getting
What's the
paid.
promo
Yes.
code?
Listen, so a lot of these sort of social science, STEM PhDs, like things that like are at that level, usually they're paid for. I think it's only really clinical psychology and like some of the more what is it? Practitioner based doctorates that you usually have to pay for, but PhDs by and large are free. Ideally, the government, like the National Science Foundation, would be helping to fund your education. Right now, they acting a little funky, but like in a perfect world, that would be the case. What we're starting to see is a lot of private foundations are starting to fill that gap. So I don't think you should be deterred from the path if that's what you want to do. I know Black women, we love to collect a degree for sure, for sure, and for good reason, because the way that we're valued in the labor market, those degrees ensure or at least suggest that we are qualified for the jobs that we're doing, right? And so I'm always baffled by how many credentials Black women have to have and the kind of credentials other folks are required to have. It's usually like thrice as much. Nobody. And so like these degrees actually help signal that. In terms of why policy and economics might be a worthwhile thing to pursue. I know you see what's going on in the news, babes. You know what I'm saying? I think regardless of what's taking place in terms of the unraveling of our government, this is going to come to an end at some point, and we need people who know how to rebuild. And so that is my plea for anybody who's interested in policy and economics. We need folks who are skilled, who have context, who have expertise to understand how we reimagine the current society that we're living in. And so for me, I can tell you what my dissertation focuses on. I study policy and economics. So people might think, oh, Anna, you talk about the stock market. I don't know nothing about the stock market at all. What I do, though, is I run experiments or try to design interventions to make it really, really hard for your boss to be racist. That's what I do, right? And so the beautiful thing about policy and economics is that if you have a social issue that you care about and you want to go ahead and tackle it through data and data can be qualitative, it can be quantitative, right? The way to do that is to potentially pursue a research degree where you get to ask those questions, you're empowered to ask those questions, and you come up with answers. So it's kind of like you're a detective in some ways. You got a mission that you got to go on, you got to go look for clues and figure out how to like solve that mission. And then once you solve it, you just tell people, here's how I did it. Right? And you tell the world. So if folks want to do it themselves or they want to tweak it or they want to improve upon it. And so what I love about the PhD and what I'm doing right now is that it's really a knowledge sharing process at its core. We're just sharing information with one another so that we can make the world a better place. I think on my end, though, I take it a little bit further. I'm taking after, Dr. Tressa McMillan Cottom, Dr. Eve Ewing, Toni Morrison, right? Dr. Toni Morrison. Like, there's certain people who I think take it a step further. It's not just about pursuing those questions, but it's also about sharing those answers that we find with you, right? I think the public is really important in this sort of knowledge sharing process. And shout out to Dr. Raquel Martin, who's really talked about this. But it's like, as a public scholar, I know she's so great. As an aspiring public scholar, that is actually why this book exists. So I'm well aware that at Harvard, we get access to like every article you could possibly imagine, every book. But as a everyday person, you may not get that. You may run into a paywall. You may have to subscribe to an
Yeah,
academic.
let me get your login real quick
I got you.
for the
I'll
HBR.
be, I'll be sharing. No. But you didn't hear me say that. You didn't hear me say that, Harvard. Sorry. But ultimately, this is really about like, there's information that's like behind these paywalls that y'all not seeing. I'm going to go ahead and put it right in front of you so you can make the best informed decision for your life.
I love that. That was a perfect welcome email. I have some follow-ups because of course I do.
Yes.
And because I am the negotiation girly,
Yes.
I'm gonna tie it back into the book and the chapter where you talk about
Amazing.
Obviously, we know about the pay gap. You also talk about some of the ways that we're held behind at the negotiating table, and just in terms of like pay transparency in general.
Yes.
Um, Now, your academic career is one thing. You talk about your very first experience negotiating in the private sector. And I felt a little bit like I wanted more details. If I was your
Yeah.
editor, I'd have been like, no, double click there. What are we going to learn? Because this is what you this is what you wrote about negotiating or like getting your first like private, I think private sector salary.
Yes.
You said, and this is when you're on the phone with the recruiter, when she began describing the role, I nearly jumped through the phone. The job was amazing, dot, dot, dot. And finally, she transitioned into the conversation I was itching to have. I would like to share with you how much we are excited to offer you for the role, she said. I inhaled. She stated the offer. I exhaled and then chuckled a little louder than I should have. Bitch, what were you laughing about? What was funny? Was it funny good or funny
It was
bad?
embarrassing. That number
What?
was embarrassing. I said,
Okay.
I know. Let me clean my ears out a little bit. Let me see if, like, can you repeat yourself? So I actually did double click on this story in earlier drafts, but I made an executive decision to like allow conversations like these to really draw it out because I was like, we're not trying to
Okay.
run into any problems, but I can be honest on here and share a little bit more about that story. So, this is 2020. Everybody was listening to that Imagine video. Horrible video, by the way. They should have
You
left
meant
that.
your least favorite celebrity was in it?
Terrible. Put that away. But anyway, between sort of these like Netflix binges, I was applying for jobs. So I applied for jobs in policy and in corporate. I had this conversation with this recruiter, very nice woman. She was like, hyping up I said, whoa, 401k, we got these benefits. Amazing, amazing, amazing. My parents were like, we just want you to get some income. I said, I got you. I'm working on it. We're on the phone. She says the number. I think it was like, I want to say it was like 45. I might be lowballing.
What job was this? For what kind of
This
firm?
was like an early analyst job, something like that.
Okay.
And I said, girl, in this economy? And I thought it was just odd because I was like, I have a math degree. I have an economics minor. I'm qualified on just that front. Then I just spent some time at Harvard. I have these skills in management. Like, are we not reading the full resume? Like, what information are you using and collecting to inform this number? And interestingly enough, a Black woman in that organization reached out to me because she knew who I was. And she was like, I heard they offered you a number. I said, girl. And she said, girl. She said, here's what I'm going to have you do. Take the number, but you're going to negotiate. And she taught me exactly how to negotiate for the number I wanted. So here's what happened. With the recruiter, this is what I learned.
Why did you undouble click this in? This is what we need to
I
know.
and I was like, girl, I don't know if I want to include it. But we talking about now.
This is how you negotiate people. Hope you're listening. It's not about like, go into your story. Go ahead. You tell me.
No, what you're about to say is exactly right. It's not just about you asking for more. It's about leveraging your networks, babes, and making sure that people are double clicking inside the organization. A lot of folks don't realize this, but this is what sociologist Devin Pager and her co-author have found. Black and white folks, we have the same access to networks. It's how those networks manifest for us to get opportunities. For white folks, they're double clicking within the organization. A lot of times because they have folks in the organization that have the jobs that you might want or are related to the jobs that you might want. With Black folks, because we have less opportunity, it's a lot harder for us to really use those job networks to our benefit. So this is an example of me being a Black woman and talking to another Black woman in the organization who basically said, the recruiter's not really the person setting the number. It's the next person you're about to talk to. And that's who you should negotiate with. She said, take the role, but let them know you're willing to negotiate a higher thing. Literally, here's how it goes. She had the phone call with me. I said, I'm interested in the role. I'll take the role, but I want to talk to whomever. I kid you not. 2-3 days later, the lady who's her boss, I think her boss's boss, was like, hey, we're so excited to have you. We heard you didn't like the number. And I said, I didn't. I don't think it's actually going to compensate me for the skills that I'm bringing to the table. She says, what number would make you happy? I probably should have put this in the book. And I said, what number would make me happy?
I'm trying to be not
I
upset
know,
with
man.
you.
It's
I love
like,
you
girl,
so
this
much.
is this
But
opportunity.
it's fine because you're saying it now. Keep
This is
going.
keep
I'm
the
hanging
ground
out
under.
with bated breath. I'm so dialed in. Okay, what?
I went ahead and I said I would like $20,000 more.
I was gonna go 75, but I'm fine.
No, I
65 is
know.
fine.
I was young at the time. I should have done
Fine.
30. $20,000 more. She says, I'm not sure if that's like within our budget. I said, this is a bank.
What's name? Is it Goldman Sachs? Is it JP? It's one of
And I,
them,
by
right?
the way, I was like, I like this bank. It's a great place to work. But I was
Big
like, this
ass
is a
bank.
bank.
See, I'm trying to let
This
you
is a
finish, and
bank. And
then I'll rant.
if you're curious, you can really look at my LinkedIn. But this is a bank. Like you guys, there's literally money in the vault, right? You know what I'm saying? Just pull some. Anyway, so she says, okay, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. 24 hours later, she says, we can do it. We're going to give you $60,000 with a $5,000 signing bonus. And I said, got it. And guess who followed up? The black woman. She said, I heard you got the number. And I said, you a real one. You a real one for that. She
I'm
said,
so
I told them if they don't hire you, that's a mistake. Damn, I
mm.
should have included this in the book. Yeah.
I'm so mad, because God, that shit pisses me off. Because, I was in
Yes.
corporate, I was a hiring manager. It's no reason why they should lowball you to that extent. Like 20 whole $1,000 you were trying to get away with. And for
Yes.
what?
And for
And they were
what?
playing in your face because they
Yes.
know you're coming from academia, you're a woman of color, they don't give a shit. You should be grateful, right? We're a big
Listen.
bank, ooh, 401k, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here with 45k and you're at a major investment bank. This is the shit that pisses me off so much because there was that influencer who went viral like the last week or two. I forget her name
Yes.
now. I'm so sorry, but
Amdi, Amandi. I know you're talking about that. She does the cutting room floor.
right. So
Yes.
she was catching hell for posting a job for 55k for an assistant who was doing, in my opinion, normal assistant things when you're working with a
Yes.
solopreneur, small
Yes.
business owner.
Yes.
Literally that job is a job that I would post and be like, I'd be so proud to be able to offer 55k.
Right.
But she was catching hell, like I think it was the cut put her on the cover of like the news
Crazy work.
magazine, like
Crazy.
to symbolize like low wages and how we are underpaying. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. It's not that's the issue. Like that's a hardworking entrepreneur who's doing her best and still at least she's offering like what I consider to be a decent salary. Corporations who are nickel and diming true like incredibly
Nickel
talented
and diming.
gems like yourself.
Oh, thanks.
I mean,
Likewise.
that's the fucking like
Yes.
that's what we should be outraged about. Your
I,
story
yeah.
pisses me off. I'm also very happy for you. And like but that just shows how the game is so fucked up and like how
100%.
without someone in the house, where would you have been?
Girl, I
We
would have
have
been
to be
$20,000 cheaper. You know what I'm saying?
It's not
Literally.
like a nice to have. It's not like, oh, it'd be nice if you leverage your network. It'd be nice. I coach this all the time. It'd be nice if you worked on building some relationships. No, it is a fact of survival. Like, do you
Yes.
want to be able to afford childcare one day? Go make a
Yes.
friend.
Yes.
Ugh.
Listen, that we can even talk about that. I will say that like what I said in that chapter to open it up is anybody who tells you that $10,000 isn't worth negotiating for has never had to like stretch a dollar. That's not somebody you should be taking any financial advice from because they have no idea what your reality is. You see what I'm saying? I think people who give financial advice should be like at least to folks who are just like the 99% should be rooted in the 99% experience, right? My advice based off of the book and based off of this conversation is it's not just about asking for more because I'll be honest, what the research shows us is that if you're a black person and you try to negotiate, they might penalize you.
Hmm.
Actually, you actually do need enforcements inside of the organization to ensure that the request that you're making that's going in goes all the way through and it doesn't get stopped at somebody's bias, right? And so that to me is probably the biggest lesson from that chapter that I would suggest. And I would say too, if you're like a black woman or a woman of color who's like in a position of power within an organization, please don't do younger women of color, black women dirty and not say anything about your experiences. Like it actually hurts you because if they raise the bar, you can raise the bar. You can say, well, you're starting her off now at $20,000 more, but when I started, you started me at $20,000 less. Can you add $20,000? So it's I like to say that, like, don't let the multi-generational, the generational wars fool you guys. We're all on the same train. This melanin is across the board. Like, they don't care.
That woman, how did you guys know each other? The woman who
So,
reached out to you?
funnily enough, and I'm just going to connect to something that we talked about in the chapter. I think it's in Broken Rungs. Me and that black woman got connected through a white guy, old white man. And I think in the book, I mentioned briefly that I wish I kind of double clicked on this too, but hopefully folks will.
The next book, it's fine.
Yeah, next book.
The follow-up.
But I mentioned that, like, black women that we spoke to and what we've seen in the qualitative research in corporate America have said that white men are better allies than white women. And
yeah, I'd add myself to that. Mm-hmm.
Right? This is something that I'm trying to.
It helps that there's more of them.
Right. Right. So
they're so relaxed. Apex predators. They're apex. They're
they don't
apex predators.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that man made that connection. The only reason I even was considered for that job was because of the white guy. And then the white guy made the connection with the black woman, and the black woman was able to double click within. But you see what I'm saying?
Doing that because she was a black woman, and was he like, you should talk to, or was that?
I think it was a little bit of that. I think it was, she's a black woman. I think this is somebody you should look up to, and also she has a lot of knowledge to share. What's funny about that interaction is the way I met that white guy. This is why you guys can't neglect any opportunities that you guys got. Him and I were just seated at a dinner, and I was just kind and cracking jokes. That's literally all I was doing. And he said, I'm on the board of so-and-so bank. And I said, ain't that like a really big bank? And he was like, yeah. And I said, if you ever want a job, this is how these white guys talk. If you ever want a job,
yeah, just
hit my line. And I did. And I got a job out of it. So, like, again, I think the big picture lessons from here is, it's not just about asking for more. It's about making sure you can double click on networks that can really serve your interests and serve the number you should be asking for. When you ask for more, ask for a lot more, because they're lowballing you. They're devaluing your labor, devaluing your skills on the onset. And then the last thing I would say is that a lot of us will engage in these professional environments where we could talk to this sort of random white guy. You never know, these random white guys, way more connected than I think anybody, because that might be his buddy from around the way, might be the CEO of JP Morgan. You have no idea. I'm not saying like go and seek them out, but I'm just saying that if you find yourself in a space like that, do not hesitate to introduce yourself. Just be a kind human. You never know what that's going to result in. For me, it resulted in a job, which I got $20,000 more for. Yeah, I could have double clicked on this.
That's fine. We got it. I scratched that itch. I had to know. I'm so glad
Thanks.
I asked.
I appreciate you.
What's she laughing at? Laughing good. But I need to know more. Oh, well, Anna, I wish we could talk for like another 100 hours.
Literally.
Well, you're a friend now, so you've been a friend in my head and in my feed.
Thanks.
But yeah, anything that we can do, Brown Ambition, is support. Obviously, go get the book. Again,
Please.
It's called The Double Tax by my guest, Anna Gifty Opoku-Agyeman. And you can find that. Where are we telling them to shop? Bookshop.org to support
Honestly,
a local bookstore.
Bookshop, your local bookstore, a black-owned bookstore, a woman-owned bookstore. One thing I would suggest is that please request copies of The Double Tax at your local library. Not everybody can afford to buy the book. So if you request it at your local library, it now becomes part of your community. So anybody can check it out.
Maybe they'll add your book to the syllabus in like some econ.
Please, if you're a professor.
I think they should.
Maybe
I would not have barely scratched a B in econ if I had this book.
Please.
All right.
Please.
You're also going on a little book tour. Not little, but you're going on a book tour, right?
Oh, I didn't know I was going to get to talk about that. Yes, I am going on a 7-city.
It's called Brown Ambition. You're supposed to just all the things. It's a podcast. It can be as long as we want.
You're killing it. Yes, I'm super excited to share that I'm going on a 7-city, 7-state book tour. So we're starting off in New York City with Chelsea Clinton, and then we're headed to Washington, D.C., where we're going to be talking about Black women leadership. We're going to be going to Boston. Oh my gosh. Atlanta, Chicago, St. Paul with Tim Waltz's daughter, Hope Waltz. I'm super excited
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
conversation. And then LA with the wonderful Dr. Malika Tubbs. We're also being in Chicago, excuse me. We're going to be talking with Mickey Kendall. So if y'all know the book Hood
Oh,
Feminism,
I love Mickey. She's been on
I
the
would
show.
say the double tax is like Hood Feminism's little sister. So
Oh,
those
that's
books
such a
are
good,
really
yes. Clock
yeah.
it.
So if you liked Hood Feminism, you're going to like the double tax a lot. Yeah.
I know Mickey loves you because she also is like so
She's
fun
such good
and
people. She's such good
she
people. I'm
really
so
is.
happy for her. Yes.
Oh, okay, amazing. So what's the website people can go find out all about that?
Literally annagifty.com. So Gifty is just spelled as gift with a Y at the end. Everything you need is on there. Everything you need is on there. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, we'll put that in the show notes to BA fam. Anna Gifty, you are a gift. I'm not the first person to make that pun, I'm sure, but I don't care.
I think
Whichever
you
one.
are, and that means a lot. You are a gift as
Oh,
well.
get
Thank you
out of
so
here.
much for sharing your platform. And I hope that you guys enjoyed our conversation. It was so fun.
I know they did. If you had a good time, usually BA fam is right there with us. All right, BA fam, until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to my guest, Anna Gifty. We're going to go get her book, The Double Tax. We're going to find her on tour. We're going to do whatever we can to support her. We're going to also, I think, walk away from this conversation feeling like very seen, very appreciated, and very motivated and inspired to whatever it is. Expect more of yourself, to keep pushing, keep surprising them that we're sticking around with our longevity, like you said. Until next time, bye, BA fam.